Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
At the age of 3, Keanu Reeves lost his father, his 29-year-old best friend, and his daughter. Prior to her birth, his girlfriend was in a vehicle collision. He persisted through it all. Quiet. He showed forgiveness. He went on. However, one individual he couldn't pardon. One treachery that was too painful. It took him 60 years until he finally said the name. Loud. By the time he did, even the closest pals were taken aback by the person Keanu detested the most, wasn't. Nobody anticipated. Everyone was involved, cherished. The birth date of Keanu Reeves was Beirut, Lebanon, September 2, 1964. The city was then on the brink of disorder. After a little more than 10 years, a civil war would tear it apart, would endure for 15 years. His mom, Patricia Taylor, who worked and was British as a designer of costumes. His dad, Hawaiian Chinese man, Samuel Reeves, was a geologist. However, whatever intentions they had for a shared future came to an end when Keanu was only 3 years old. His dad walked left and never returned. That instant altered everything. His early years turned into a haze of motions, adjustments, and fresh starts that didn't last. By the age of 10, Hanu, having previously resided in 4 separate nations. Then, from Beirut to Sydney, first New York, then Toronto. Absent roots, no true friendships, only enduring movement. His mom was trying her hardest, attempting to start again, in their life and once more, yet each location felt fleeting. It wasn't made any simpler by school. Hanu having dyslexia without a diagnosis, which made writing and reading our daily challenges. Between 1979 and 1984, he visited 4 many high schools, one following the another. The arts at Etobicoke School, Deandale Secondary, and Leal College Alternative, followed by the art school. He was unable to keep up. Instructors referred to him as preoccupied or lazy. Report: the cards were full of F's and D's. But he left the school when he was 17 years old. It appeared that he had failed. However, it was actually the initial step in locating acting was something that really suited him. Things weren't any better at home. Steady. The romantic life of his mother brought in a row of males who appeared to potentially grow up to be father figures, but none of they remained. Director Paul was one of them. When Keanu was younger, Aaron married Patricia. About 11 o'clock. He even attempted to present Keanu to the theater. It seemed as though perhaps he had someone. But it didn't work out. In a divorce. Once more, the pattern was repeated, and once more. A new man, a moment's silence, then one more. Farewell. Keanu discovered early on that the sole individual he could rely on was himself. At 13, he had one finale, encountering his biological father. It took place in Hawaii's Kauai. They hadn't seen one another in 10 years. It wasn't a cozy reunion, no embraces or sorry. A simple, uncomfortable meeting organized by family members. Samuel had been getting lost in life, having trouble with narcotics, and precarious employment. The gathering concluded with no meaningful relationship, and Keanu never again saw or spoke to him. Keanu was 20 years old in 1984, and attempting to claw how he got into acting. He accepted a position as a young correspondent for CBC. I covered activities and speaking with children for local TV. It only paid $200 per week. However, it allowed him to enter the world he much needed amusement. He had been auditioning behind the scenes, constantly, playing any part he could. However, there was an additional barrier, his name. He was informed by agents that Keanu was also ethnic. In Hollywood, it wouldn't work. They requested that he alter it. Thus, for 2, he was known as Casey Reeves, or Casey for many years. At auditions, Reeves. He detested it. The Keanu's name translates to cold breeze over the mountains. He was a person because of that. In 1987 saw him abandon the fictitious aliases and resolved to simply be himself once more, even if receiving fewer roles was the price. That was when he got a part in River's Edge. Although it wasn't large, it was genuine and he owned it. Years in the past at DeSalle, Keanu had been a goaltender for the college hockey team in school. They referred to him as the Wall, as nothing escaped him. He was composed, determined, and unflappable. His 2.1 goals was a strong goaltender stat. Against the norm, and he aided his group. In 1982, won a title. Later on, that same serene focus would appear in his performance. Directors took note. He wasn't very dazzling, but when things got Keanu didn't break under the intensity. He required that emphasis in 1984 while he was performing, all he could to stay alive. At one point, he was behaving in a corny Coca-Cola advertisement, posing as a cool dude at the shore. He earned $2,500 for it. The following instant, he was Shakespeare's play at night for free. In Romeo, he portrayed Mercutio and Juliet in a tiny theater in Toronto, giving it their all. Critics gave him high marks, however, it didn't cover the expenses. He was balancing passion and embarrassment simultaneously. In the same year, he received a little part in a Canadian low-budget program referred to as Hanging In. He portrayed a disturbed wolf is a teenager. It was intended to be his big break, but instead it became a catastrophe. He gave a tight performance. He lines were forgotten. It required several tries to get basic situations right. He was just there for a while. They wrote him out after 4 episodes. It severely damaged his confidence. He even thought about stopping performing and leaving. Let's get back to hockey. However, he stuck along with it. He learned from that failure. He never forgot it. You are unable to fake it. You must arrive, get ready, and be honest. It's the same genuineness that subsequently made him among the most adored performers worldwide. Reeves got his breakthrough part in a gloomy, the unsettling movie River's Edge, published in 1986. It was inspired by a true murder case that startled a tiny Californian community back in 1981. Reeves portrayed a reserved adolescent called Matt had to choose whether or not to report the murder of his lover by his pal. The movie didn't mince words. It demonstrated how young folks who are disengaged and numb could be. It was a dangerous first major role. Decision. But Keanu succeeded. Detractors commended him for remaining composed and aloof, on screen like a vintage noir movie investigator. He didn't scream or weep. Rather, he displayed intense emotion just by holding back. Later, that control would turn into his signature. The movie took home the most image from the Independent Spirit Awards and made Keanu visible. Then arrived what nobody anticipated. In 1989, Bill and Ted's Fantastic Journey was altered. Everything. It was full, noisy, and goofy, of traveling across time. Keanu portrayed Ted, a sweet high school slacker with no idea who merely wished to pass the time. He and Bill, played by Alex Winter, was cast accidentally. The original script, the characters were envisioned as dorky metalheads, but upon seeing Keanu, the authors and Alex collaborated to revise Therrell's. The two got along so well that they actually became best buddies. Life. The film nearly didn't happen. The first studio filed for bankruptcy during manufacturing. It was saved by another business, right on schedule. No one anticipated that it would labor. The filmmaker even departed the town on opening weekend since he was afraid it would fail. However, viewers adored it. The $10 million film brought in 40 million theaters. Hanu became a comedy all of a sudden. Star. People were constantly quoting the movie. Phrases like as be excellent to each other and the party on guys joined the tradition. Ted had a straightforward outlook, but nice, and Keanu gave him a complete genuineness. He was lovable because of that. Prior to long, detractors who had previously disregarded him began to listen. They became aware of he possessed a unique quality. He had a magnetic personality. On the screen. The film inspired a follow-up, a TV series, a cartoon, and even breakfast cereal. More significantly, it demonstrated studios, where Keanu may distribute a movie. Everything altered as a result, as Bill and Keanu didn't only make Ted famous. Keep to comedies. Approximately the same, he took on significant positions over time to demonstrate he was able to range. In the 1988 book Dangerous Lions, he performed with legends such as Glenjon Malkovich, and closed during a time drama set in France in the 18th century. The film's production cost was $14 million, made $34.7 million. It received 7 Oscar nominations, including the top image. Keanu performed a young music educator entangled in a web of deception and coercion. It was a significant change from portraying Ted, and it demonstrated his ability to manage intricate characters. Then he followed that up with 1989's Parenthood. A touching comedy, Ron Howard is the director of the drama. Keanu portrayed a kind but troubled young man dating a mother who is unmarried. The ensemble included Rick Moranis and Steve Martin, well-known comedians. Keanu managed to hold his own between them. The movie was inspired by actual family tales and received 2 nominations, Academy Awards, by selecting intelligent, thoughtful roles between his popular films. Comedies. Keanu gained admiration in Hollywood. However, Ted never truly left him. That position did more than just create chuckle. It influenced how viewers perceived Keanu. Ted lacked courage and intelligence, but he was sincere and compassionate. He didn't cross moral boundaries. He was ungainly, but kind-hearted. Keanu's mix became his trademark. He differed from other leading men. He had no intention of being macho or slippery. He could be identified with. He had the impression of a genuine man, and, for that reason, individuals bonded with him. Even after several decades, Keanu maintained that persona. A woman for Bullock. One by one, each and every well-known people refused. Yes, Reeves replied, and history as a result. The Matrix was released, produced $469 million on a March 1999 budget. $60 million. Its IMDb rating was 8.7, rating based on more than 2 million votes. It prevailed. 4 Academy Awards. It brought in It's Time to Go to the Movies. Lengthy jackets and sunglasses gained popularity once more. Individuals began discussing Sims and Huardi, tablet that is red. It was more than a movie. It was a worldwide occurrence. However, even The Matrix had difficulties. The Wachowskis had a profound concept underlying the movie. In the originally written script, people weren't batteries. They were involved in a neuron, a living supercomputer. The studio believed that viewers wouldn't understand it, so they made the modification. Rather, power cells were created from humans, idea that didn't qualify as science makes sense. Hollywood wanted it to be easy. As a result, the film lost some of its depth. Some claim that we lost out on far more. An introspective retelling of the tale. Next, the sequels followed, reloading The Matrix both Revolutions and were published in 2003. Made a lot of money. Reloaded brought in $739.4 million worldwide. The R-rated box was broken. Workplace documents, but the thrill didn't endure. Fans were perplexed by the plots. The notorious scene with the architect left spectators in a fog. Revolutions provided no actual responses. The conclusion seemed pointless. The audiences left feeling let down. Keanu later acknowledged that he could understand why people were agitated. Many fans believed that the sequel's The First Magic was ruined. Additionally, for the response was severe. Following unfortunately, Reeves experienced yet another difficult time. Once more, people began making fun of his acting. His performances were deemed wooden by critics. He was viewed as an anomaly. Movies such as Chain Reaction, Feeling Minnesota, and my most recent suicide attempt didn't assist. The return to career that His Matrix was beginning to wane. He drifted for more than a decade. Hollywood went on. Then John appeared out of nowhere. Wick in 2014, and he was back in a flash. Afresh similar to an action hero. Quiet, lethal, and awesome. Once more, audiences adored him. Reeves made it through every twist, refusal, failure, and exile. He transformed everything into fuel. His path wasn't solely about films, it was about remaining loyal to oneself. He was. When others performed in the Hollywood game, he turned to go. When studios banned, he pursued other avenues. And he arrived after everyone had given up on him. Return more powerful. Keanu Reeves never thought that his greatest regret in Hollywood would originate from a person who once believed. In 2000, just following the enormous achievement of The Matrix, he unexpectedly discovered that he was imprisoned into he had never consented to do the film. It was referred to as The Watcher. Additionally, the instant something didn't feel right, when I saw the deal, he was certain that he had declined, but there was his legally binding signature. Him to the undertaking. That signature wasn't his. It was fake. Even worse, it wasn't carried out by an outsider. It originated with someone around him, someone inside of his circle, a companion. This was not an easy miscommunication or error. It was intended. This individual had access to his private records and made use of such access to force him to see a movie he didn't want to create. In addition, Hanu was already enduring emotional suffering in his private life. His connection to Jennifer Sim had a rough time and was battling her personal problems. Faced due to this treachery, Keanu had two options. He could appear in court, battle the contract, and allow the conflict to continue, openly. Or he could pass through in silence, with it, and safeguard his tranquility. He decided to the second choice. He shot despite the fact that everything within. No, he said, the movie was a complete failure. It earned only $29.1 million on a $30 million investment spending plan. It was shredded and rotted by critics. It received an awful 11% on Tomatoes. Keanu's acting seems rigid and separated, which makes sense. He didn't wish to attend. Later, he referred to the movie was awful and acknowledged that it was a low juncture in his career. The individual, whose name was never made public. However, following that, Keanu modified his approach to everything. Agreements, friendships, have faith. It was an agonizing lesson about how. Even a well-known performer can become vulnerable when those in his immediate vicinity choose to take benefit. Meanwhile, his personal life was in disarray. Jennifer Sim and Keanu first met at a party in 1998 for Dogar, his band. She was only 26 years old and employed at David Lynch, director. Their relationship was immediate. Together, they moved in. Immediately, and in less than a year, Jennifer was expecting a daughter. They intended to give her the name Ava Archer Sim. Reeves. However, on Christmas Eve 1999, Jennifer went into labor too soon. Ava was stillborn at 8 months. What ought to have been the most joyful period of their lives become the darkest of them. The sorrow was overwhelming. Jennifer required medical attention and was postpartum depression treatment. The anguish was too great. Their partnership started to disintegrate in the weeks that followed the death of Ava. Keanu didn't approach but never really left her side. They remained near. He wished to aid in her recovery, But Jennifer started going out to parties as well as alcohol. She went into a spiral. However, and they had started to get back in touch in early 2001. They were making another attempt. April 1st, they even got together for brunch in San Francisco. She was gone the following day. Jennifer attended a gathering that evening at the home of Marilyn Manson. She drank, and Manson arranged for a ride home. However, later that evening, nobody fully comprehends she chose to drive. Returning to herself, she struck her Jeep on Kahina Street. She didn't have on a seatbelt. On impact, she passed away. She was 28. When Keanu was unable to contact her, he called the coroner's office the following morning, and inquired as to her presence. The accident investigation revealed dark information. Jennifer was prescribed 2 medications. Prescription, drugs in the vehicle. In addition, she had $2 folded up and dusted with white powder. Police were told by her mother that she had been fighting beyond pain and sadness, vehicle collision. She had recently lost her as well, grandfather 1 month prior. All of that, anger accumulated. Her mother's lawsuit did not go to court against Marilyn Manson. However, nothing could reverse what had already taken place. For many years, Keanu remained silent. His career cooled. Following The Matrix, he starred in a number more films that were unsuccessful. The Lake House Henrys' The Day the Earth Stood Still Play the Game. In 2014, Hollywood had nearly dismissed him. He was 50 years old and people believed his time was over. Then arrived Wick, John. Nobody anticipated that it would be awestruck. It had a modest budget, roughly $20–30 million. The movie wasn't even purchased by Lionsgate until 2 months prior to its release, yet the film burst. It earned $86 million. It was praised by critics. Keanu was a fantastic fit for the character. Keep quiet, serene, lethal. The writer and director centered the character on him. They kept the conversation brief and concentrated on his presence. It was successful. People noticed him in a fresh way. That film provided Keanu Hollywood his second life. Today, John Wick has earned more than $1 billion throughout the franchise. He is anticipated to show up in a minimum of 6 films as the personality. It turned out to be the most prosperous function of his whole professional life. However, not his triumph was greeted with kindness by all. Matthew Perry launched a haphazard attack in 2022, Keanu in his autobiography. He asked why. Outstanding performers such as River Phoenix and, despite Heath Ledger's passing, Keanu Reeves still moves among us. It wasn't a joke. Perry stepped up and mentioned Keanu, once more when discussing Chris Farley's demise. The public's response was immediate and severe. It was incomprehensible to everyone. Perry and Keanu had never collaborated, done him any harm. Perry attempted to describe. He declared himself to be a fan and that he chose a name at random. Nobody truly purchased it. The assault felt personal, resentful, and unexpected. Keanu remained silent. He never does. He's always done it that way. Silence power. Despite the world's whims, he was in a state of turmoil. By use of treachery, death, heartache, and public taunts, Keanu has persevered. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't crumble in front of cameras. He simply continues. He's created a legacy of survival and a career what most people would have broken.